Hey there, I hope you're doing well. I'm Shawna, your counseling astrologer. This is your weekly astrology forecast for August 1st through 7th. And this week is all about your flow state. So figuring out how to tap into that flow state. We have some aspects that are kind of tough involving Mars and Saturn. Mercury's changing signs, and then we have a really sweet and supportive aspect that's really good for creativity involving Venus. So I'm excited to share the transits of this week with you, and then I'll have 3 tips for you to make the most out of this week. Just a reminder, this is a general reading, so if you're interested in more personal guidance and advice, you can get in touch with me for a personal astrology reading. So first thing that's happening that's the most angsty kind of transit that's going on is we have Mars making a conjunction to Uranus. So this means that they are together at the same degree in the zodiac. And Mars is about initiation and action. It's like really moving, taking things in stride and initiating new action. Whereas Uranus is about innovation, radical, dramatic changes, going against the status quo. It's about the unexpected happening. So this could be a week where unexpected things happen. The other piece of this, though, that creates a little bit of tension, or maybe a lot of bit of tension, is that Mars is going to square Saturn. So Mars square Saturn, this is a toughie because Mars wants to move, it wants to act, it wants to do something, and then Saturn wants us to slow down. So Saturn is really about building the foundations, creating limitations, boundaries, and when Mars and Saturn come together in a square aspect, there is this conflict of interest. Where it's like you can't do both things at the same time. That's the nature of a square aspect. And these planets are have conflicting values in themselves as well. So Mars wants to move, it wants quick results from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. And then Saturn wants to run a marathon and to build muscle slowly over time. So the core, though, of this aspect, we're still just talking about Mars-Saturn, and then we'll bring in Uranus, is Mars-Saturn is about building strength. It is about really developing that staying power, that focus and concentration, and becoming a more strong, resilient human being. Now, that doesn't happen through kicking back and hanging out, unfortunately. So there's this kind of it may feel kind of like a push or a drive or even a strain. But when you hold that and when you manage it, it can create great success, Saturn. Now, I think the piece that makes this maybe the most difficult is that we don't just have the Mars-Saturn where there's this dedication to building strength. We also have Uranus here, which is a desire for freedom, a desire to be unburdened from the Saturn structure and limitations. So it may kind of feel this week, so when people have aspects like this, especially that involve both Uranus and Saturn, they usually feel like they want to just say, fuck it, I want to just release all of my responsibilities and go do something fun or totally reinvent myself. But then there's this Saturn responsibility, and that doesn't always mean it's a forever responsibility. Sometimes it means that there is something that needs to be done, Saturn, in order to get to that unburdenedness, Uranus. So I realize this is super heavy the way I'm talking about it. So you may be oh, I feel great, Shawna. But I just want to normalize that this is a tough transit, and especially people that have personal planets in the fixed signs, you're going to be feeling this a lot more, because the other layer of this is that we have a first quarter moon in Scorpio. So that first quarter moon is happening at 13 degrees of Scorpio on Friday the 5th. So it's Friday at 4:06 a.m. Pacific time, 7:06 a.m. Eastern time, and then if you're in Australia, it's at 9:06 p.m. Australian Eastern time. So this first quarter moon in Scorpio is keying in to Mars and Uranus in Taurus and Saturn in Aquarius. So this is like a really, it's like a hot spot. And it's asking us to do the hard work without burning ourselves out. Basically, that's another way that it could manifest. And it's also asking us to figure out how and where and when to focus our very precious time and energy. The other piece of what's happening this week is that Mercury is moving into Virgo. And so this is important because Mercury rules Virgo. It likes being there, so there's more of an ease with communication. And I want you to keep in mind where Mercury is in relation to your birth chart. So maybe what house it's falling in, where it is in relation to your moon, because Mercury will station retrograde in September. So don't stress out about it yet, but I just want you to have that in the back of your mind, that Mercury in Virgo is a place where we will be reevaluating and rethinking and revisioning things in September. And then, okay, so this is like the supportive part of this week. So we also have Venus in Cancer making a trine to Neptune. So this aspect is really supportive, totally a symbol of creative or meditative or like flow kind of states. In one of my other videos, I talked about flow and Saturn. This is like what we traditionally associate with flow, where Venus is like enjoyment and luxury and pleasure and sensuality, the senses, and then Neptune is altered states of consciousness, being in a flow state, spirituality, connecting with your inner self, connecting with the divine, something greater. And it's in a trine, which is like really supportive and harmonious and usually goes well for us. So I think to take advantage of all of this, I have 3 tips for you. So tip number 1, super important, is to set your focus. I think when we have this kind of energy, especially that Mars, Uranus, Saturn, it can feel like overwhelming. Saturn can often pull up these feeling states of it being so heavy that it's like too much. And so in order to dial this back a notch, I want you to think about that your focus is limited. This is not a week for multitasking. This is a week, I think multitasking is usually not productive, even though we have to do it often. But this is a week where you really want to think about doing things one at a time and to decide very intentionally what you want to focus on this week. Tip number 2 is to channel your energy intentionally into that area or those areas. To not let yourself get distracted by BS that doesn't matter. And tip number 3 is to take it one step at a time. So this might be difficult, but it's going to be more productive for you, because Saturn is really calling for us to be strongly concentrated, to do things one step at a time. And if you go too fast, you're going to get feedback because you're going to feel a little bit overwhelmed. And yeah, that's that. So again, if you want to get into this a little bit more, especially if you are having Saturn transits to your birth chart already, this is really going to key into you specifically. And so I want you to be very gentle with yourself. And if you want more personal guidance, you can definitely get in touch with me for an astrology reading based on your personal birth chart. I am sending you so much love and wishing you a wonderful week. I'll see you soon. Bye.